The frame of First Kings. The book of First Kings began with the story of King Solomon. Why did it begin with the story? As per the purpose of the book, there were many lessons about Solomon which their descendants should not repeat. It means that Solomon was a kind of bad king. Of course, he did many good things, but he came to disobey the Lord's command, as written in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 16 to 19. He got many horses, wives, and concubines, silver and gold, and it was presumed that he didn't meditate the words of God day and night. Hence, he committed idolatry through his wives and concubines. Finally, the Lord punished him by giving the kingdom to his subordinate, Jeroboam, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 11. Since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Who was the subordinate? Yes, Jeroboam, who was from the tribe of Ephraim. It was probably after Joshua of the same tribe who had successfully carried out the Lord's commands. He became the first king of Israel and ruled 22 years. The number at the top left represents the order of kings, and the bottom right one represents the ruling period. During Jeroboam's 22 years ruling over Israel, Rehoboam, Abijam, and Asa, these three generations became kings in Judah. During Asa's 41 years of ruling, Israel had 6 kings from 3 new kingdoms through betrayal. Nadab, son of Jeroboam, became a king, and he was killed by Baasha. Baasha's son Elah became a king, but he was also killed by Zimri. Zimri ruled only 7 days. Then he killed himself in a burning palace when he surrendered to Omri. Then Omri became a king in Israel, and his son Ahab succeeded it. All 7 kings and 4 kingdoms of Israel overlapped with Asa, the king in Judah. The book of 1 Kings ended with a very short story of Asa's son Jehoshaphat, the king, whereas 1 Chronicles recorded a long story about him. Like this, the stories about 7 kings of Israel, 4 kings of Judah, and King Solomon were described in 1 Kings. In other words, it was lessons from Solomon to Jehoshaphat. Before going into the detail of each king, let's take a look at the difference in comparing the chronicle between Israel and Judah, which may not match to the Chronicles of Kings. Chronicles. There were 2 ways to count the ruling periods of kings. They were both a single input. The both input was that the year was counted for both previous and succeeded king. The ruling period of Israel kings was probably counted in this way. The single input was that the year was counted for only the previous king. Judah kings were probably counted this way. The other difference between 2 countries were the beginning of the year. The new year was Nisan in Israel, which was the spring season and probably March or April. But the new was Tishrei in autumn in Judah, which was probably September or October. It is very complicated after Jeroboam's 2 in Israel, and there were several regencies in Judah. Therefore, it was a little difficult to estimate the exact chronicles of kings. But the information of the overlapped kings of Israel and Judah was available, which was denoted by arrows on the slide. Let's go in depth of the story of each king. Solomon sacrificed 1,000 offerings at Gibeon, where the tabernacle made by Moses was. See the photo of the high place at Gibeon. It was not 1,000 times offerings, but just one-time offering of 1,000 sacrifices. Do you think about this high place is sufficient to give such 1,000 sacrifices? Yeah. And therefore the Lord came to him and asked his wishes. Then Solomon asked for wisdom to serve his people. The Lord gave him wisdom and additionally blessed him. Why did Solomon sacrifice it? It was probably his reaction to the Lord's grace through defeating his political enemy Adonijah to be a king. The Lord blessed him because of his reaction to his grace, whereas he cursed Hezekiah because he had no reaction to the extension of his life. Therefore, we have to respond with thanks to the Lord's grace. So we have to give thanks to the Lord before our prayer, as written in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. The Lord came to Solomon 3 times throughout his lifetime, after the 1000th offering, at the devotion service of the temple, and at the notice to hand over Israel to Jeroboam. The first king of Israel, Jeroboam, committed 4 major sins. Made 2 golden calves at the Bethel and Dan, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 28, built shrines on high places, appointed priests with all sorts of people, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 31, and instituted a festival on the 15th day of the 8th month, as written in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 32. The feast was the Lord's Day and the shadow of Jesus, as stated in Colossians chapter 2, verse 17. These are a shadow of the things that were to come. The reality, however, is found in Christ. Why did Jeroboam commit these sins? There was a political reason that he was anxious about people not returning from visiting Jerusalem for the feast. He expected that people served the idol at Bethel and Dan during the feast. All king of Israel repeated these sins until the end of Israel, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 26. He walked in all the ways of Jeroboam son of Nebat and his sin, which he had caused Israel to commit, so that they provoked the Lord, the God of Israel, to anger by their worthless idols. Since the first king Rehoboam of Judah made a wrong decision by following young officials in administering people, 10 tribes went to Jeroboam and set up a node on Israel. Rehoboam also set up high places and Asherah poles, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 14, verse 23. The Lord punished Judah throughout the Shishak, the king of Egypt. The Shishak carried off the treasures of the temple of the Lord and a royal palace, as written in 1 Kings chapter 14, verse 26. During Jeroboam's reign in Israel, Abijam and Asa became kings in Judah. Although Asa ruled 41 years, a relatively long period, his record was much less. He got rid of all the idols his father had made, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 12. He even dethroned his grandmother from her position as queen mother, because she had made a repulsive Asherah pole. During Asa's reign, 3 new kingdoms came into Israel. Omri was the most powerful and fearful, but recorded very less in the book. People called Israel Omri's house in those days. Omri became a king at Asa 31 years and bought the hill from Shimor for 2 talents of silver, and built a city on the hill, calling it Samaria, after Shimor. The name of the former owner of the hill, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 16, verse 24. This was the origin of Samaria. Ahab, son of Omri, became king of Israel and reigned in Samaria over Israel 22 years. He not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam, but he also married Jezebel, the daughter of the Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 16, verses 31. In Ahab's time, Hiram of Bethel rebuilt Jericho. He laid his foundations at the cost of his firstborn son, Biram, and he set up his gates at the cost of his youngest son, Siga, in accordance with the word of the Lord spoken by Joshua, as stated in Joshua chapter 6, verse 26. Cursed before the Lord is the man who undertakes to rebuild this city Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn son will he lay its foundations. At the cost of his youngest will he set up its gates. This was fulfilled after around 500 years. These are the words of the Lord, which will definitely be fulfilled. There was an incident involving a vineyard belonging to Naboth. The vineyard was in Jezreel, close to Ahab's palace. Naboth told Ahab that the Lord forbid him to give him the inheritance of his fathers, as written in 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 3. Hence Ahab lay on his bed sulking and refused to eat. His wife Jezebel killed Naboth through a conspiracy and seized the vineyard. The Lord cursed Ahab through Elijah, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 19. In the place where dogs licked up Naboth's blood, the dogs will lick up your blood. This was fulfilled through Ahab's death, as written in 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 38. Ahab died at the battle with Aram. The battle was suggested by Ahab when Jehoshaphat visited Ahab. It was very interesting the way Jehoshaphat replied, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 4. I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. Of course, they were connected in marriage of their son and daughter, but the relation looked like between king and his commander. It was presumed that the northern Israel was stronger than Judah, so Israel influenced Judah for a period. Ahab was killed by an arrow at a battle in Ramoth Gilead, where the refuge of the Gadites was, and later where Jehu was anointed by Elisha's disciple, as stated in 2 Kings chapter 9, verse 6. 1 Kings ended with a short story about Jehoshaphat. The Lord called a prophet Elijah for Ahab, and he performed for major missionaries, as written through chapters 17 to 19. Let's go into the detail on the other side. Elijah's missionaries. The Lord commanded Elijah to go and hide at the Keris ravine east of the Jordan, and ordered the ravens to feed him there, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 4. Then the Lord told Elijah to move to Zarephath of Sidon, and commanded a widow to supply him, as written in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 9. But she was desolate after several years' drought, and didn't have anything to feed him except only a handful of flour and a little oil. But Elijah made it abundant. After her son was resurrected by Elijah, she confessed, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 24, You are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth. We have to confess this every day, because we can see such miracles every day in the Bible. Elijah had a fight against the 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah on Mount Carmel. He repaired the altar of the Lord with the 12 stones and defeated them with the Lord's power. Then people cried, as written in 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 39, The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. Elijah slaughtered all the prophets at Kishon Valley. Because of this incident, Jezebel got angry and tried to kill Elijah. So he escaped to Mount Horeb and stayed in a cave there. Then the Lord came to him and gave him 3 missions to anoint Hazael, Jehu, and Elisha. But he anointed only Elisha by throwing his cloak around him, as stated in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 19. And Elisha anointed Hazael, 2 Kings chapter 8, verse 13. And a disciple of Elisha anointed Jehu at Ramoth Gilead, as written in 2 Kings chapter 9, verse 6. Israel and Judah. See the locations which were referred to in 1 Kings: Sidon, Ahab's wife Jezebel's native place, where Elijah went and saved the widow and his son. Dan and Bethel, Jeroboam put golden calves. Ramoth Gilead, Ahab were wounded at Bethel with Aram, and died at Jezreel, as they were cursed. Jehu was anointed there. Jezreel Naboth a vineyard. Omri bought and named Samaria. Jericho had been cursed by Joshua, and the curse was fulfilled during Ahab's time. Gibeon Solomon sacrificed 1,000 offerings, and it was also where the tabernacle made by Moses was. The theme of 1 Kings. The book of 1 Kings consists of 9 major topics. It began with Solomon's reign through the surrendering of Adonijah's revolt, Solomon's offering and his performance, building the temple of the Lord and the Lord's covenant, punishing Solomon by calling Jeroboam, separation into 2 countries, Jeroboam the sins and walking in the same ways of all the other kings, Ahab's marriage and Elijah's foreign missions, Ahab's evil doing, Elijah's prophecy and Ahab's repentance. The battle of Ahab Jehoshaphat with Aram at Ramoth Gilead and Ahab's death. It ended with a short story about Jehoshaphat. Thanks for watching.